Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is a paid request for Dan. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting any type of videos, random thoughts, streams, commentaries, video game playthrough for an hour, a full playthrough, re-reviews, tier list rankings, commentaries, whatever the case may be, PayPal's the best way to do it. Do have a Cash App as well. Links are down below, and I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. For those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. Now, this is for the 1986 film Platoon, which of course came out huge success. I think Oliver Stone won Best Director at the Oscars. It won Best Picture, and really catapulted Oliver Stone's career. Because directing wise, he only done a few. He did this film called Seizure. No one knew anything about it. Then he did The Hand, which, ironically enough, I did get a request for that, and that will probably be. I'll probably upload them the same day as this one, so it'd be like a weird Oliver Stone double bill. This and The Hand, although this was much better. But The Hand kind of hurt Oliver Stone's career. I think he even admitted that he's kind of proud of the film. He, at least in this interview he did when The Hand came out on Blu-ray or whatever. But he knew that it did affect him, and for a few years he only did like writing duties. He helped write Scarface. Was it Salvador? Then eventually this. Actually, I want to see. Did he do Salvador? I know he wrote Salvador. Did he direct Salvador? I know he wrote it, but I gotta double check real quick. Sorry. Maybe he did make that. I'm trying to. Yeah, he did it. Okay. Came out the same year as this, so there you go. Salvador. Now Salvador, I don't think did that well, but Platoon definitely did. But yeah, for other than writing Starface and other stuff, he couldn't get a lot of work until stuff like this came about. And of course, Oliver Stone, he was in Vietnam, he had experiences in Vietnam, and he wanted to make a different type of Vietnam movie. Now, at this point, there had been Vietnam films, but either they were much more patriotic, like The Green Berets, which I know a lot of people do not like that film with John Wayne because they mention how inaccurate it is, how that's not how it was at all. And then you had kind of the POW movies, Uncommon Valor, which I think is very underrated, in 1983 that came out, where we go back to rescue the POWs, Gene Hackman, Reb Brown, Fred Ward, Patrick Swayze, great movie. And then in 85 you had the fun movies, or the entertaining movies, like Missing in Action, and was 84, and then Missing in Action 2 was 85. Rambo, First Blood Part 2, that was 85. So there were not a whole lot of Vietnam movies that really got into kind of the gray morality of what was going on from without and within. And Platoon kind of helped start that. There might have been films before that dealt with it, but this really got into that prominence where maybe this is the war we should not have been in, that there may be some people who went above and beyond what they were supposed to do in a very unmoral manner. And it'd be a touchy subject because not all soldiers were like that, but you hear reports that there were some who were either desensitized or just went crazy or just felt like they could do anything because they lived in this claustrophobic way of jungles and forests and trees and away from civilization and lack of sleep and stress, and you could be away, you could die just like that, and someone could sneak up on you, you could step on a trap. This type of guerrilla warfare that was not typical for Americans to deal with. And then some of them, they were either drafted or they volunteered to say, hey, their dad or granddad was in World War II or World War One, and then come to realize this is a different kind of war and a different kind of way. It affected a lot of people, even afterward. PTSD and people that just could not handle it, and people who couldn't get into, like First Blood. They couldn't. It was hard for them to settle, and they were called baby killers and all sorts of vile crap. Just sadly, there were some that were. There were some that did that. Not all of them, but there were enough that made the others look bad. So, going to any of that type of detail, some may view it as anti-American, but I mean, if it happened, then it happened. And then you saw after this that you saw a lot more of those type of Vietnam stories being told. Hamburger Hill, Casualties of War, Full Metal Jacket, and well, all those films I like actually. Even 84 Charlie Mopic, which is a little known one, because it's filmed like a documentary, like someone has one of those old school cameras and they're part of the team, part of the unit. That's actually a film I like to watch again. I haven't seen it in a while, but I do remember liking 84 Charlie Mopic. But yeah, Casualties of War is great, wonderful performances. Full Metal Jacket, one of my favorite Stanley Kubrick films. Hamburger Hill, like of those serious war, like if I don't count Uncommon Valor or the more like entertainment ones like the two, Rambo. The Hamburger Hill always thought was a strong, underrated movie. And I would actually say I probably liked Hamburger Hill more, although I do like this film. Hamburger Hill just something about that I just thought felt more. I don't want to say more real, but I almost want to say it. But I thought Hamburger Hill was even more affecting. But this was still a very good movie. From the use of music that was of that time, like White Rabbit or The Track of My Tears, whether it be the cast, that's a phenomenal cast. You got Charlie Sheen, up and comer at that point. I'm sure he did this because, hey, my dad did Apocalypse Now. Which, you just say that was a film that was a precursor to this, and you just say that was the film that first started the ball rolling on the whole Vietnam and the morality. But this one, I felt more of the. That one maybe people on this journey, and then here's this crazy guy who thinks he's a god. This one is like the unit and how, some people in the unit they're willing to rape this person without thinking twice. They're willing to shoot this woman in the head because they think they're in the right. And that one I felt had a little bit more of that gray moral compass of more than one individual, if that made sense. But you have Charlie Sheen, who's the new guy. You got the two sergeants. You have the more good, moral, kind of a little bit more hippie-like sergeant, played by Willem Dafoe. You have the more stern, you want to call bad guy, like played by Tom Berenger. But you have Forrest Whitaker's in the film. Keith David from John Carpenter's The Thing is in the film. Kevin Dillon, who would later be in the Blob remake, he's in the film. John C. McGinley, who's been in a lot of stuff. He was in Nothing to Lose with Martin Lawrence. He was in Highlander 2. He's been in a ton of stuff. You got Tony Todd, may you rest in peace. He makes an appearance in the film. Johnny Depp. Some of his stuff was cut out, but probably the big scene he's in is, well, two. One is the translation scene where he's supposed to be translating the language to Tom Berenger. This is before Tom Berenger shoots the lady. And then the scene where he gets wounded. but I think some of his stuff was cut out because you do find deleted scenes where he has a bit more dialogue, a little bit more to his character. There's also one of the head guys from the band In Living Color. You know, the band that sings the CM Punk theme song, The Cult of Personality. One of the, I forget his name, but he's in this. I think he's the guy with Charlie Sheen at the end of the film when they're in the foxhole. The black guy. I think that's him. I could be wrong, but I think that's him. Yeah, I forget his name because I'm bad with names. But it's a really good cast. And they all do their jobs well. There's a part of me that wishes I could have seen more from this or this guy, but there's only so much time. But, I mean, the way it's filmed, the way the jungle looks, when the action's there, it does feel intense, especially at the end. And, you know, the music works well, especially Adagio for strings. Very strong, emotional piece of music that you hear at the beginning and hear at the end of the movie. So it's a good places to put that, is a very strong piece of music. And pretty much just goes through him trying to get with the group and trying to get a handle on how things work. And, you know, Willem Dafoe is giving him a little bit of leeway. And Willem Dafoe's like, you don't need this, you don't need this. There's a bit where it's not his fault, but something happens, he gets wounded. Then the guy invites him into this place to party and have fun with Willem Dafoe. And again, he's more like kind of a little bit more hippie type where, well, the worm has definitely turned for you, man. And gives him stuff to smoke. Even this thing where you think he's going to shoot him, but it's actually like a barrel for him to get some smoke, some weed in. And then party and look at my face, the track of my tears. So it goes through the things. Again, trying to get into it, trying to get with and make friends. Then the seriousness of the situation, how Tom Berenger's much more hard-nosed. Tom Berenger, you see that he's all, like, his face is all scarred up, so he's definitely been through some shit. You have John C. Bedentley, who's more of the weasel type of guy who kisses Tom Berenger's ass and will do anything to save his own. Then you got Kevin Dillon, who's more of just a creep. There'll be a point where he, like, kills someone, and then he's like, man, did you see how that fucking head come apart? We should kill all of them. And then you have Teef David, who I would say of all the people, other than Willem Dafoe, Teef David is the guy who becomes closest to Charlie Sheen. So it was great to see Teef David get, I don't want to say a substantial role, but compared to Forrest Whitaker and Tony Todd, Teef David definitely has more scenes in the film, which is nice to see. And it comes to a head, spoilers for a film for how many decades ago now? Gets to his village, there's weapons, Tom Berenger's wondering, you know, who did you supply these to? And, you know, wanting answers. They're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And then Tom Berenger shoots the lady, the wife, and then he threatens the kid. And then Willem Dafoe stands up to him and defies him, and they start fighting. Then they're told to burn the village down and take the people and the kids to somewhere else. And then you have this friction where there's some people on Dafoe's side, there's some people on Berenger's side. And I mean, there's not a whole lot of room for deep discussions. At times they play a bit much, sometimes a bit too much on Charlie Sheen monologuing. And maybe they did that because didn't Martin Sheen monologue a lot in Apocalypse? I barely remember Apocalypse now, to be honest. I just think those stuff could have been maybe more effective in actual conversations, but you know, they work for what is needed. And just like why I thought one of the scenes effective is when Charlie Sheen is talking with Willem Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe is saying, "I think we're going to lose this wall, this war, not wall, yeah, tear down the wall, lose this war." And Charlie Sheen's, "Nah, you really think so?" And Dafoe's like, "Well, we spent all this time kicking people's asses. Figured it's time we got ours kicked." And he was right. He was right. Until ultimately there's another battle, and again the battles do feel intense with the way they use the pyrotechnics and such. Willem Dafoe does something, he comes back, he sees Tom Berenger, he thinks he's safe, Berenger shoots him, because that way Willem Dafoe doesn't tell on him later about him shooting that lady. Charlie Sheen's wondering where he's at, and Tom Berenger says he's dead, we gotta go. But then when they get on the helicopter, Charlie Sheen looks down, you see probably the most iconic shot in the movie that was used a lot at the promotion, where Dafoe is running and he's wounded, and you have the music playing, and he kind of gets on and he does this. You've seen that image. Even if you've never seen the film, you've seen that image of him doing this. Which I know is not on the one poster, but like afterward, you would see that everywhere. And in fact, that's probably what I'm going to use. Because the actual poster is kind of blasé, but I always remember the thing with the pose. Which was also like on the video game, because yes, there was the Nintendo game of Platoon, which I never played. Never played that, but it seemed like a pain in the ass to play. At least the first level. But yeah, of all the movies that did a Nintendo game, I always thought this was weird because even like, okay, Rambo, like, okay, I could kind of see it, although it should have been more like Contra. But Platoon, really? That'd be like the end of a game of Full Metal Jacket. That'll be when you hit the guy with the bar of soap, tap X, repeatedly. So how fast you hit, Private Pile with soap? It's just like, really? A Nintendo game for Platoon. I would love to somehow find out the story of how the fuck that happened and who made the decision of, like, did the studios go, hey, or did someone, like, who made the decision? Did someone, hey, this script, you know what? Let's make it to a video game. Like, I wonder if, like, the people who made the video game, they watched the film and go, shit, we gotta make a game on this? Okay. That'd be funny if that game was made like Contra. Super serious movie. And then... Anyway. But yeah, that kind of shot of him raising his hands up. Although to be honest, he doesn't do it like this. It's kind of like this. He's not really doing full this. But that does work for a poster. But he's kind of like this and then falls to the ground. Just maybe not as high as maybe in the poster stuff. But anyway. A little bit, marketing, have a little bit more dramatic effect. Anyway, of course, Charlie Sheen sees this. He knows Tom Berenger lied. And that's where you get into Charlie Sheen thinks we should do something. They're like, Keith David is like, yeah, we should. The other's like, I don't know. Tom Berenger overhears it. Charlie Sheen and Tom Berenger get into a fight. Tom Berenger threatens him and then cuts, like, below his eye. And then the last bit is a very intense bit of this night fight. And I gotta say, this whole scene, it really does feel like everything is coming out of the woodwork to kill your characters. Where it really does feel like an onslaught. Like, just being overridden. Whether getting out of the foxhole, and then Charlie Sheen is like the fucking attitude, I'm just gonna kill whoever I can. Oliver Stone is in the film as a guy, where the Viet Cong, one guy comes in with a grenade and blows himself up, but blows the rest of them up. I remember watching this again and I forgot that scene. So I'm like, oh, it's Oliver Stone. And all of a sudden, here's a guy running, ah! And then they come and Oliver Stone's like, grenade! And then it blows up. Oh, shit. Yeah. I forgot Oliver Stone died in the movie. One shot I thought looked a bit weird. I get why they did it is, as all this chaos is happening, there's a bit where Charlie Sheen's on the ground, Tom Berenger's up top, and he's going to like hit him with like a rock or something. And he has this one shot where you could tell like the bat, there's some kind of like, I don't know, superimpose or something, and the eyes, like they try to put like red, like something in his eyes or something like that. And then Charlie Sheen's just doing. I'm sitting there going, dude, like grab him, push him, hit him in the nuts. Why would you even? You would not be doing like. That was such a weird shot. It should have been just like kind of going back and forth like this. Like do this. Like going back and forth and it's kind of a stalemate and then do it. It just would look less silly than that. I thought it was a silly looking shot to me. That's just me. Then afterward you see all the dead bodies. Charlie Sheen's all bloodied up, sees Tom Berenger and shoots him. Before all that, I forgot about this, which was nice though. Teeth David got to go home, so it was nice that at least Teeth David survived. That was really cool to see. Throughout the film, a few other people get, like Forrest Whitaker gets shot. Johnny Depp's character gets shot up. I don't know if they survived or not. You just see them carried away, but I don't know if they survived or not. And then pretty much because him and then the other guy, which I want to get that guy's name. I feel bad not saying his name. The guy from In Living Color. I like the idea that he decides to stab himself in like the leg so that he's wounded twice, because apparently I don't know if this is still a thing, but the way he says, or I guess you tell me, was it a thing at all? If you get wounded twice, you get to go home. But he played Francis, Corey Glover, the lead vocalist of Living Color. I keep saying In Living Color, but it's Living Color. And in Living Color did Cult of Personality. So, yeah, he played Francis, Corey Glover. You also have Richard Edson. Him and Fisher Stevens were in the Super Mario Brothers movie as Iggy and Spike. You also have Captain Dale Dye as a captain, and I think he actually was in this trying to help to make sure things were as real to life as possible. Again, it's still weird that there was a fucking Nintendo game. But it's still weird to me. Like, what the fuck? Anyway. And he gets to go home. Now, again, the film, I do think is effective because I think the cast do their jobs well. Charlie Sheen gives a very solid performance. Of course, we later worked with Oliver Stone on Wall Street, which came out after this. Helped Charlie Sheen on his way to the stardom. The movie, I would say like Hamburger Hill, I thought the action felt even more intense. Like, it got intense at times in this. That one felt a bit more violent and intense. I don't know how to put it. And that's why I would say like Hamburger Hill I liked a bit more That's a film I really did feel like anybody could die at any moment. I really felt that with Hamburger Hill. So it definitely made things a bit more like suspenseful of who's going to make it and who's not. And then, like Full Metal Jacket, I think that did stuff unique enough. Not just the opening with the Arlie Ermy and the basic training, but the second half where it's a battle in the city. I think that made it so unique because you're so used to Vietnam movies being in the jungle that I thought it made it more effective, especially against the sniper. Because while I do like Oliver Stone, I do think Stanley Kubrick, I would say he's a better director. But I think Oliver Stone did a good job. Well, I really don't have a lot of issues with the film. I do like the film. It's just a film I don't rewatch a lot. But no, there's no particular reason as to why. It's just there's other ones I watch more. But I did the cast do a good job. The music fits the film well. Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger. I kind of wish they had more scenes together. Because there's a few scenes where they go back and forth, but I wish they were in it together more. I wish there was even more of that kind of back and forth, like maybe their different beliefs. Granted, maybe that would seem a bit too preachy, but it felt it would have been nice to see a bit more conversation between what Willem Dafoe believes and what Tom Berenger believes, and them arguing back and forth, really arguing back and forth, and why my idea was better than yours, and vice versa. Would have made when Charlie Sheen at the end says they felt like two fathers fighting for my soul. Would have made that line a bit more effective. And we saw more of that in the first half of the film. Maybe they felt that would be too much of an embellishment. I don't know. But still a very solid film. And like I said, while there was stuff like Apocalypse Now before, this definitely opened up the floodgates where they saw just how much money this made. That probably even when it was being made, they go, okay, this seems like it could be a big deal, so let's make our own and try to get it out as fast as we could. But by the 90s, that kind of died down a little bit because when you got to the 90s, I mean, Oliver Stone did another called Heaven and Earth. That was in the 90s. And there's a few, like maybe like Vietnam veterans that came home, those type of movies, but I see like Vietnam movies is not really something you see done a lot nowadays because of the details of the fact that it's many people could argue we never should have been there in the first place, that it was a war that we never should have been in, that it said it was being done for one thing, but it really wasn't. It's for other stupid reasons. And that a lot of people died for nothing. It's a war that, like World War II, it's us versus the Nazis. Like, there's the good guys, there's the bad guys. But because it's such a morally gray area of just the situation at hand, and because of the stories you hear about how, some soldiers were doing the right thing, but some soldiers were doing what they're not supposed to do. Hence, like the story that was the basis for casualties of war. It just becomes a bit of a stickier subject matter when people who do marketing and stuff, they like things much more simplistic. Good, use your bad. So, like, World War II seems to be the war that people like to make movies on the most. Because I can't remember the last Vietnam movie. Unless you want to talk about what was that, Colonstor Island, or what was that movie that came out where it had dinosaurs in it? I can't remember what the hell it was called, but unless you want to say that. But with that said, Charlie Sheen did a good job showing his vulnerability When he needed to be tough, it didn't feel too out of place. Maybe a little bit naive that should be at the beginning, and you see his emotions fluctuate in a natural manner as things get more and more complicated. Like there's a scene where he's like dance, dance, and in the middle he's like crying because he's realizing what the hell am I doing. I think Chief David, great support, always gave a commanding presence when he's on screen. Tom Berenger has that look on his face like you don't want to fuck with this guy. And what they did with him and the stars on his face definitely sells that. And Willem Dafoe, who's usually playing the villain, he's just very likable guy. You see, warming up to him and feeling bad when he dies. Kevin Dillon did a good job as a sleazeball who's racist against the Vietnamese. John C. McGinley does a good job playing that chicken shit, who thinks he gets away with it at the end, but then it'll be right back to the shitter, so to speak. Like I said, Johnny Depp and Tony Todd and Forrest Whitaker, they sadly don't have a whole lot to do, but this is kind of before they were as well known as they became. So, it's just how it is. But yeah, with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.